Finally shut down, my post-80s brothers. Completely done. Workers behind me have already started dismantling the equipment. The hardship of physical manufacturing can only be understood by those who've been through it. When there's plenty of work, there's no staff. When there's many staff, there's no work to do. Big orders yield no profit, and profitable orders are scarce. Those with both volume and profit are all in debt. The man in the video is the owner of a mechanical processing plant. Due to long-term insufficient orders and various delayed payments, he found it difficult to continue operating and had to reluctantly shut down the factory he had been running for years. My factory closed down, ended up losing over 10 million. The factory was rented, still had 3 years left on the contract, and the deposit is now definitely gone. What hurts the most are these machines, bought brand new 2 years ago. Some domestic, some imported, barely used for a year, and now no one wants them even at half price. Things aren't like they used to be. I advise everyone to stay away from the machining industry. The wave of factory closures in China continues. Last year, news of the closure or relocation of foreign trade giants that have been in operation for decades was occasionally heard. And now, due to insufficient export orders and weak domestic consumption, leading to severe overcapacity, the manufacturing industry in China continues to face a harsh winter, with reportedly 90% of factories either closing down or falling into difficulties. A few days ago, my friend's factory closed down, and all 50 workers lost their jobs. It was a mold processing factory in Bao'an District, Shenzhen, which had been operating for 15 years. And the reason for the closure was the same as what 90% of the manufacturing factories in China are facing now. Before the end of 2020, the factory had some old customers, could make a profit of 1 or 2 million after a year of effort. But after the outbreak, the factory started and stopped production intermittently, basically losing money for a year. Unexpectedly, the following 3 years were worse than the previous one. After surviving through 2021 and then through 2022, the epidemic finally ended. In 2023, he thought they won't aim for expansion this year as long as there's no loss, and just surviving is enough. However, at the start of the year, there were almost no new orders. The old customers who used to order every month also significantly reduced their orders. The entire industry had fewer orders than during the 3 years of the epidemic, leading to severe competition within the industry this year. To get orders, besides low profits, customers also demanded goods to be made before payment. In the second half of 2023, he was basically just chasing payments. Many customers were withholding final payments, and his factory had long run out of operational funds. During this period, he had already mortgaged his house in Shenzhen for business loans. For these 3 years, his factory had been barely surviving on loans, and he didn't know when it would all end. Recently, he's been exhausted, so he decided to shut down all workshops. He never imagined that after surviving 4 years of hardship, he'd fallen in the darkness before dawn, in the early months of 2024. As the former world's factory, Dongguan is especially hit hard by closures. Many large factories are now empty. Some have been vacant for years and still cannot find tenants. The factory used to rent for 400,000 a month. Now it's been empty for 3 years. The owner spent tens of millions building such a beautiful factory. Why leave it empty for so long? It used to be used by a listed company. Ever since that company moved out, it's been vacant till now. And those factories that haven't closed down yet, due to the lack of orders, the bosses are also struggling to sustain them. For those factories that have not closed down, due to a lack of orders, the owners are also struggling to support them. Brothers and sisters in manufacturing, how are your orders in April? Let me tell you about mine. April's orders are even fewer than the same period last year. It's already mid-month, and I have no hope for any orders. Almost all of my customers have hardly any orders. If this continues, bosses like us in small manufacturing factories will soon become the bottom of society. Becoming a bad debtor is only a matter of time. My factory in Guangdong is quite typical of those in the industry. Most of my customers' products are for export, and the majority of my factory's products are also for export. Why was Dongguan's GDP so low last year? It's because we've encountered problems with our exports. Due to insufficient orders, many factories have stopped production, given workers time off, or reduced their working hours. This has led to dissatisfaction among employees. On March 26, hundreds of workers gathered outside the Chongqing Huguang Automobile Electric Co. Ltd. to demand their rights. Recently, due to insufficient work at the factory, employees have been forced to take time off. Most of them are migrant workers from other places, and not having work means no income. Unable to make ends meet, hundreds of workers went to the factory to demand to resume work. Huguang Automobile Electric Co. Ltd. is a privately owned enterprise specializing in the research and development and production of automotive high and low voltage wiring harness assemblies, with its headquarters in Zhangpu Town, Kunshan City, and Chongqing being one of its production bases. Its main customers are automobile manufacturers, and now many of their customers are not operating at full capacity, resulting in the factory halting production due to a lack of orders. Recently, workers at Mankun Technology in Baoan District, Shenzhen, gathered at a factory gate to demand their rights, displaying banners reading, "I want to work, I want to support my family." It also stated below, the company forces employees to resign with a 5-8-hour day work week. It turns out that due to insufficient orders, the factory changed the work schedule for workers to a 5-8-hour day work week and stopped arranging overtime. However, without overtime, workers earn very little under the schedule. Workers believe that the company is using this as a reason to force employees to resign, so they gathered at the factory gate to demand overtime. Mankun Technology is a national high-tech enterprise specializing in the research and development and manufacturing of high-precision printed circuit boards, with its products mainly used in automotive electronics, industrial control security, consumer electronics, and communication electronics. Factory closures or insufficient operating rates have also made it difficult for many workers to find jobs. At a talent market in Guangdong, it is crowded with workers looking for jobs, perhaps to go home disappointed after a day of hard work. The job fair scene is even more crowded. This is a factory's job fair scene, and in the video, shouts from what appear to be recruiters can be heard. Those over 33 can go back, those under 33 stay, not accepting anyone over 33. Some say that given the current pace and trend of factory closures in physical entities, it is expected that within 2 years, the wave of labor migration in China will come to an end, leaving uncertainty about the future paths for young people. From the perspective of factory closures, insufficient operating rates, and a large number of people unemployed, it seems that China's economy is facing significant challenges. This also reveals an important message, namely overcapacity, which is a hot topic being discussed internationally. In this year's government work report by the Chinese Communist Party, it also admitted to overcapacity in some industries. An economics professor, Lu Feng, at Peking University's National School of Development, pointed out in March that China's products such as petrochemical raw materials, fuel and electric vehicles, power batteries, and non-core chips are all facing overcapacity. He said that overcapacity is not a new problem for China. Since China joined the World Trade Organization in 2001, the low-cost made-in-China goods have repeatedly impacted the global trade market, achieving its status as the world's factory, but causing irreparable damage to the manufacturing industries of European and American countries. After the pandemic, China's economic recovery has been weak. Traditional export orders are insufficient, and products manufactured by Chinese factories exceed the domestic market's absorption capacity, causing almost every industry to face overcapacity. As other countries strive to curb inflation, China is experiencing rare deflation. To alleviate the situation, China is attempting to increase exports to boost the economy and flood Western markets with low-priced high-tech products. These high-tech products, officially referred to by the CCP as new quality productive forces, include electric vehicles, batteries, chips, and solar panels. However, some analysts believe that the China Cheap Goods Impact 2.0 strategy, while impacting the global market, is destined to backlash against the Chinese economy. On April 16th, the official economic data released by the CCP showed that China's economy grew by 5.3% year-on-year in the first quarter, mainly due to strong industrial output and exports. In January and February, China's industrial engine accelerated to 7%, but slowed down again in March, growing by only 4.5%. In terms of quantity, China's exports in March reached a new high in nearly a decade. However, in terms of value, they were only slightly higher than in October 2023. This also indicates that due to overcapacity in China, companies are squeezing each other's profits by lowering export prices, resulting in an increase in export volume without an increase in price. From another perspective, this also means that Chinese companies' pricing power, both domestically and internationally, is weakening, and profit margins are decreasing. Another indicator that overcapacity is rebounding against the domestic economy is capacity utilization. Data shows that in the first quarter, China's manufacturing capacity utilization rate plummeted to 73.8%, the weakest level since 2015. Detailed data on capacity utilization rates provide a pessimistic signal. In the first quarter, the decline in the operating rates of industries such as electric vehicles, chips, and solar panels, which the CCP vigorously promotes, was particularly noticeable. Especially the utilization rate of the automotive manufacturing industry has now dropped to below 65%. Of course, this is also related to the current status of China's automotive industry. For years, the CCP has spared no effort using high subsidies and various preferential policies to fully support the development of new energy vehicles. It is estimated that from 2010 to the present, over 200 billion yuan, about $28 billion, has been directly subsidized to new energy vehicle companies by the CCP, with the highest amount reaching over 40 billion yuan, about $5.6 billion, in a single year. The CCP's irrational economic measures not only harm the global economy but also damage China's own economy. The subsidy policy has not only led to the emergence of numerous purported new players in the automotive manufacturing sector, but has also notably spawned a significant number of counterfeit car companies that rely solely on deceiving subsidies through presentations and mock-up models. The Wall Street Journal reported that in 2018, there were already more than 487 Chinese electric car manufacturers, but now there are only over 40 remaining. In other words, in just 5 years, more than 400 new energy vehicle companies have disappeared. Of course, this is also related to China's cancellation of subsidy policies at the end of 2022. This also leads to an overall overcapacity in China's automotive industry. In the field of new energy, according to reports including Weima, Innovate, Singulato, and iWays, there are 15 new forces in the car manufacturing industry that have declared bankruptcy or are in crisis. Collectively, these firms had planned an annual production capacity exceeding 10 million vehicles and had allocated an annual investment of over 600 billion yuan, approximately $83 billion. However, the estimated actual annual capacity utilization is only around 3.8 million vehicles. Under the current market conditions, the probability of reusing these capacities is slim, resulting in significant waste of funds and resources. In February of this year, Hi-Fi Cars, which targets the high-end market, announced a 6-month shutdown, which is essentially equivalent to bankruptcy. Hi-Fi is the first Chinese new energy vehicle company to collapse in 2024. When a brand faces collapse, various services may also come to a halt. Now Hi-Fi vehicles flood the second-hand car market, and it's very difficult for owners who bought cars for 700,000 yuan to sell them for 200,000 yuan. Even worse, those second-hand car dealers who accept Hi-Fi cars are stuck with them because no one is interested. I never expected that the first car manufacturer to collapse this year would be Hi-Fi. Only drove 20,000 kilometers. The car lost over 300,000 yuan in value, and that wasn't the end. Wasn't it supposed to be the pride of domestic products? Wasn't everyone supporting domestic products? Wasn't it said that this is the ceiling of electric cars? What's going on? Bosses, I've been trying to sell this car for 3 months. Not a single inquiry. At the end of last year, after spending hundreds of billions of yuan in financing, Weimar Motors finally closed down. Subsequently, tens of thousands of Weimar car owners complained that the electric cars they bought for over 100,000 yuan are now unusable, like a pile of scrap iron. Some predict that given the intense competition in China's current new energy vehicle market, the situation of Weimar and Hi-Fi represents the future of about 80% of Chinese new energy vehicle companies. Even those car companies that have not disappeared are mostly struggling on the brink of survival in the face of price wars, with problems such as production stoppages, sales outlets withdrawing, and inability to pay wages. It is said that currently, Chinese new energy vehicle companies are generally in a state of loss, and only a few companies like BYD and NIO have achieved profitability. Industry insiders further estimate that the top 10 car companies in sales this year will occupy nearly 85% of the market share, and 80% of the brands will close in the coming years. And recently, Xiaomi, which just released its first new car SU7 at the end of March, is also facing losses. It was reported that Citigroup released a report predicting that the delivery volume of Xiaomi Group's SU7 in April will reach 5,000 to 6,000 vehicles, with an annual delivery volume of about 55 to 70,000 vehicles. However, Xiaomi's average loss per SU7 sold in 2024 is estimated to be 68,000 yuan, about $10,000, with a total loss of 4.1 billion yuan, about $570 million for the entire car business. Xiaomi chairman Lei Jun responded on April 18th, saying that there has never been any enterprise that makes money in the pure electric vehicle market today, and basically, a ridiculous loss of tens of thousands of yuan can occur for one car. As early as mid-February, there are reports from Chinese media revealing that Xiaomi Motors had prepared for losses of more than 5 years into the future. Xiaomi Motors' entry into the market has further accelerated the shuffle of new forces within China's car manufacturing, not only making it difficult for weak companies to survive, but even those in the first tier are facing continuous market differentiation. Li Auto, which achieved profitability just last year, has been hit hard with various negative news emerging on the market since the poor debut of Li Auto Mega. In addition to the sharp drop in stock prices, Li Auto employees recently revealed online that the company is no longer recruiting new employees, and the entire budget forecast will be reduced by over 30%, as well as news of impending layoffs. NIO and XPeng, which once fought side by side with Li Auto, are even worse off, as they have yet to achieve profitability. In the face of fierce competition in the industry, their performance has also shown a downward trend. In March, the performance announcement released by XPeng showed that the company's total vehicle deliveries in 2023 were 141,600 vehicles, but it still maintained increased revenue but not increased profits, with a net loss of 10.4 billion yuan, an increase of 13.6% year-on-year. The company's overall gross profit margin was only 1.5%, a decrease of 10 percentage points from the previous year. In comparison, NIO achieved operating income of 55.6 billion yuan in 2023, with a scale exceeding that of XPeng Motors, but the losses are equally staggering, reaching 20.7 billion yuan, which is twice the losses of XPeng Motors. Li Xiang, the CEO of Li Auto, once posted on Weibo, saying, "The 3-year elimination race of intelligent electric vehicles was from 2023 to 2025. Technology, products, and delivery capabilities are rolled to the extreme. It is the barrel theory where the industry can only be as strong as its weakest driver. None of them can be lacking." At the beginning of this year, with BYD Qin leading a significant price reduction, many car companies followed suit, making the competition in the 2024 automotive market even more intense. After this round of reshuffling, it remains to be seen how many new forces in car manufacturing will ultimately survive. Facing fierce competition in the domestic market and overcapacity, Chinese electric vehicle companies are looking for a way out overseas. However, any country facing the impact of cheap Chinese electric vehicles needs to remain vigilant. Both the United States and the European Union have already protested. As a result, we see unsold Chinese electric vehicles piling up in ports across Europe. However, in order to maintain domestic production capacity, Chinese electric vehicles continue to be transported to major ports in Europe in large numbers. It can be foreseen that if exports slow down or encounter setbacks, private investment in China's manufacturing industry will be the first to slow down. The Chinese government continues its overcapacity strategy, and ultimately, the only ones left to pick up the pieces and foot the bill will be the Chinese government or state-owned banks. This is similar to the impact of investment in real estate and infrastructure, leaving behind a large number of unfinished projects. Research by Mary Gallagher, a China expert at the University of Michigan, says that overcapacity is part of a broader style of Chinese governance that tends toward excess capacity and overshooting targets, from the Great Leap Forward to China's real estate boom. National resources are always limited, and the CCP's bet on supporting the country through a certain industry is a gamble that faces huge risks and costs. Past large and expensive bets by the CCP on semiconductors and commercial aircraft have proved unsuccessful. Today, the same is proving true in the electric vehicle industry, which will ultimately backlash against China's economy.